All right, all right. Another Monday, more college football, and man, it feels like every Monday we have more and more news to talk about. And I think that's just kind of where we are in the season with transfer portal stuff heating up, recruiting heating up, playoff implications on the line, bowl game, conference championships. But even then, what a weekend of football. Today, I'm joined by Preston of the PG Show. Preston, where can the people find all your great content?
Yeah, so y'all can find me on YouTube, just the PG Show, all one word. You guys can also find me on Google, Apple, or Spotify. Listen, we're growing fast. We're bringing lots of player interviews, got lots of great content planned out for you guys. So I would love to have you guys jump on over and come check me out.
Yeah, man, always a great time over there, and you have so much planned, y'all. That's no joke. He was telling me in the green room, y'all need to be aware of everything coming down the pipe. Stay tuned. Go head over to his channel, hit that subscribe button. Absolutely worth your time. John, thank you for joining us this evening. Matt, how are you this evening? Thank you for being here, man. Glad to see both of you. And we have got a pretty loaded show. I think the best thing to do is just to hop into this because we're going to need every bit of the time we have this evening. And Preston, I want to hear from you first and foremost on Oklahoma, West Virginia, and just out the gate. I know you talked about this last night, but I kind of want to get your take again, and floor is yours.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I've had some more and more time to sleep on it, but we've went and really stuck our necks out and defended Dylan Gabriel over this season. But it seems like every time we defend him, he just goes out there and plays worse. Like he gives you a reason to not go out there and defend this man. So I'm officially done defending him, so that maybe he'll just go out there and play better. But
And
I
hey, I've
still
been a big defender of him too, and it's the inconsistencies, man. Like it's getting tough. Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting hard. But here's what I told Drew last night, and something that I think sometimes I have a really hard time for remembering during the games, and OU fans have a hard time remembering during the games. Dylan Gabriel was, I believe, a 3-star quarterback coming out of high school. Correct me
OU
if I'm
fans
wrong.
are a little bit spoiled when it comes to the quarterback position, though, in fairness, right? I mean, you just look at y'all's run. It has been historic, truly.
No, it has. And I mean, I think it's again, we talked about it. It's unfair to compare him to some of the other quarterbacks that we've had. But yeah, he was a 3-star. Uh, he was the number 758th national player coming out of high school. And when he goes to UCF, yes, he's playing in Jeff Levy's offense, but he has so much going against him this year. One, at UCF, he does not have the type of receivers that he has here at Oklahoma. I don't think people truly understand how hard it is to potentially make that adjustment in talent around you. Like I just feel like that would be hard to make when you're playing with more skilled guys. But two, he's never had more time in his life to just stand in the pocket and try to find somebody that's open, which I think could also be playing a huge factor into this because for his whole life he's been scrambling, sacked a total of I think it was 50 times in his career at UCF, and then he comes to Oklahoma and he's only been sacked like 9 times. That's a huge difference. And the other thing with Dylan Gabriel is, he's coming off of an injury. And then he got hurt again this year. So I just feel like there's a lot that's potentially compiling up with him. People got to remember, he wasn't even in Jeff Lebby's system last season. So I think there's this like, I think we jump on him too hard, too much, but I'm kind of I'm getting to the point where I'm done defending him because I just feel like every time I do it, he just ends up playing worse. Eric Gray is obviously the solid spot for this team in this offense. I think over the next couple of weeks, you really have to lean on Gray, and you got to kind of have those opportunities with what we had in this game where he can go get you 200 yards. And that allows other guys like maybe Javante Barnes or Farouk to open up in the running game, especially if you've got Eric Gray in the backfield and you're lining up with 2 running backs back there. And then in the receiving game, and I was talking to Drew about this, man, I love Marvin Mims. It might be time to just go ahead and start moving on from him. And here's what I mean by this.
I just wouldn't center the offense around him to that degree. Farouk is a guy. Like, let's start
No,
mixing it
he
up, and
is.
it'll open up for Mims as well, or at least in
He
my
is.
opinion.
But Mims is going to the draft this year. You and I
True,
both know that. There
no
is
doubt.
no scenario where he stays next year and increases his draft stock unless he just goes for 2,000 yards. I just don't see it. Right? NFL people know what they're going to get from Mims. He's probably going to go within the first 5 rounds.
Oh, he's not. He's not making it to round 5.
Let's
He's not making it to round
well, let's
5.
just be safe and say he's going in the first 5. I mean, you know, Theo Weiss, I expect to hit the portal, but there's not. I mean, if you're wanting to be optimistic, there's a chance he could stay. You've got guys like Farouk and Jaden Gibson. I think it's time for Oklahoma to start making their campaign to the guys that are going to stay at this point. You're 5-5. You're playing for bowl eligibility, but I think at this point it's really time to get some of these guys experience. And I would go and honestly, if I'm BV, I'm talking to Mims and saying, listen, dude, like you're talented. We love you here at Oklahoma. And yeah, like we want you to be able to play on senior night, but Texas Tech and on, it's probably time for you to opt out of the season because, and then
the
I would
only reason I would caution against that, I think Mims is a guy that we know how talented he is. But if he has a few big games, man, he could. Now, I'm not saying a massive rise, but I don't think it's unfathomable to think that if he has 2 big games, he could swing his position up to 12 draft picks up, one way or the other. So like, that's a decent bit of money. I hear where you're coming from. I certainly don't disagree, but for Mims, I still think he could play his way into more money because he has the ability. That's not a question.
It's potential. I
True.
just think it's time for Oklahoma to prevent any wide receivers from hitting the portal. Really make your case. Really show them some love. Do as much as you can to save them, and let the guys that are graduating out and the guys that are potentially going to hit the NFL draft this year, let them have their day on Saturday. But after that, start making your case to all these younger guys. Make the case for them to stay. And that's on the defensive side of the ball too. I mean, to be honest, if I'm BV after senior day, after senior night, I'm probably playing more freshmen than I have all season against Texas Tech and in the bowl game. It's time. Like you have
certainly
to,
in the bowl game.
yeah.
Absolutely.
At some point or another, you've got to just move on from the guys that aren't working. And I get it. You can't do that in the middle of the season. But listen, we're at the tail end of the season. Get bowl eligible against OSU. Get through senior night, and then start making the shift to the younger guys. Get them some talent. And I think if you do that, you're going to see a lot different of a Oklahoma team. Because I was talking to Drew about this again last night. Multiple times throughout the season, I have watched the defense give up a big play, or you have somebody show up on 4th down and they line up on them. And it's almost like a psychological something that happens where they could have played really well for the first 3 downs, but all of a sudden they line up on 4th down and they forget how to play defense. It's kind of like someone going up to the free throw line. They can't hit free throws, and they have to go get psychological counseling to hit free throws. That's kind of what I see this as. Some of these older guys, I feel like they get out there and they just can't get past this. For so long, we've been so bad. And I mean, I told Drew last night, if I'm an offensive coordinator and I'm on 4th and short, I'm lining up every single time on OU because I'm probably going to convert 70% of the time.
Unfortunately, I completely agree with you there. You know what's so wild to me, man? And I think this is telling. Whenever I look, if I just, and I don't like doing this. I rarely ever do this. I'm the person who always preaches, don't look at the stat sheet, watch the game, and then look at the stat sheet. But right, for the purposes of this conversation, we're going to look at the stat sheet here. Oklahoma outgained West Virginia, right? And I get it. It was a close loss, 3 points. They outgained West Virginia, but the time of possession difference was substantial.
15 minutes.
15 minutes. How do you outgain somebody and lose the time of possession battle by that margin? It's one thing for 5 minutes. You're a quick scoring offense. Boom, boom, boom. 3 plays, bam. It is what it is. 15 minutes?
But
that's wild.
That's been a trend, though, from Oklahoma for years. But it's the point you said. They were scoring. This time, they're not scoring, but they're probably just as talented as some of those offenses that we've had. And we've seen them be just as talented because they've been able to go out there and score. I don't know what it is with the offense and not being able to gel and mesh together because this offensive line isn't even that bad. Like, Antoine Harrison's probably going to go in the first 2 rounds. Easy.
Probably, yeah.
And there's a good chance he goes in the first. Like, there was a thing about put out the top 100 guys that could go out into the draft this year. Antoine Harrison was number 25 on that list. Number 25.
And you already know those tackle positions and offensive linemen so coveted in the NFL. And then even further than that, you look at his position, you look at who his coach was, and you look at how those guys have transitioned to the NFL. Probably safe to bet he's going to be a very coveted player.
Yeah, I just, I don't understand what's going on with the offense this year. And you know what? If the complicated calls are what's doing it, then why can't you try to dumb it down a little bit to make it easier on them and to make it easier on DG? Because I do, like, again, I said it earlier, I do feel like DG's maybe got some rust and he's got all these things working against him. Make it easier on him. Give him a little bit of a better load. Let him have another whole off season with the guys.
Well, so here's one question I have, and I don't know the answer to this. What degree of control does DG have over the offense? Does he have full control? Now, I would imagine he does, given the age, given the amount of college football experience he has, given the fact that he's worked with Lebby. But he's got to have the ability to make simple audibles, right? I mean, I would be
I would think.
amazed if he didn't. But I think one of the things that's tough, man, is I don't think that things are getting picked up pre-snap. And the reason I say that, I guarantee you've seen it. There's a still image from that game. And I think y'all are on like a 3rd and 3. And West Virginia has no safeties over top. They're probably in a cover 1, but more than likely a cover 0. Like straight up 9 people in the box, 1 corner on one wide receiver, 1 corner on the other wide receiver, nothing. Man on man, nothing. You needed 3 yards. I thought that, and once again, I'm no X's and O's genius. This is simply my opinion. You look at that, and 9 times out of 10, you hear quarterbacks talk about that's usually a time where you audible, right? Like the box is stacked. There's 9 guys. Audible, take advantage of your guy on a one-on-one matchup. You got Marvin Mims. He can't win off a release on a quick slant for 3 yards. No, I have full faith Marvin Mims is going to win the battle of a release. Full faith. Anticipate the throw, boom, first down. That was interesting to me because I know there's a lot of talk about Lebby, but I'm just really interested how much is not getting picked up pre-snap. It's something that was pointed out in one of the videos I did, and I'm really going to take a deep dive here soon to try and figure that out. One of the things I talked about, there's a lot of talk about whether it's coaching or execution. It's largely execution by and large.
No, yeah, and Matt is saying something here in the chat, and I know somebody else said it too about it being Lincoln Riley's fault. And guys, I'm not saying Lincoln didn't have a part in what this team is, but at some point or another, we as OU fans have to stop pointing the fingers at Lincoln Riley and start pointing the fingers at the players that are here, that have been here for 4 or 5 years and cannot change or make a difference or adapt to the game. Because that's what I see. I see players out there that have been here for a while. And I mean, they're great guys. Don't get me wrong. They're a great group of dudes, but they just don't have it. You heard, who was it? Eichard was talking about it, but there are guys that are on this team that, or it was Mims talking to Brandon Drum. That's who it was. It was Mims talking to Brandon Drum. There are guys on this team that do not know what it means to play for Oklahoma. And that's a lot of tenured guys as well. And that's the problem. When you have guys that are going out there and you can see it in their body language. Like they're like defeated. They're giving up. Well, one, that's setting a terrible example for the younger guys because it puts the younger guys in the same exact position. They're setting them up for failure. And so I agree. It's 100% execution. It's a lot of this is on the players, not necessarily the coaches.
See, and I don't know that I'd say 100% execution because this is the only area, and I don't think this is indicative of bad coaching. I think there's been times where, and I'm looking at you, Ted Roof, the defensive play calls have not been conducive to success. Some of the situational play calling defensively doesn't make much sense to me. And this is something I've talked about before the West Virginia game. PG, you'll remember earlier in the year, I think when y'all played Kansas State, y'all were already in the bottom 100 defenses against the rush, and y'all were trying to employ a 3-man front. Not a 3-3-5, as in you have 3 down linemen and a linebacker making up 4 people on the line of scrimmage. No, y'all had 3 defensive linemen down when y'all are already undersized on a 3rd and 1. At that point, I'm like, it's hard to execute when your defensive coordinator is giving up numbers game and the 3 down linemen are taking on 7 blockers. That 1 + 1 cannot equal 82, right?
I don't
like
understand
some of this stuff is so simple.
Calling. I don't understand the defensive play calling. If you don't have the personnel to run what you want to be able to run, why do it? And why keep doing something that doesn't work? Why
Well,
line
that's
up
the part
on
that
a
and that was the point I was trying to make. And then the other point is you're in a 4th and 3 and your DBs are 7 yards off. They just showed you the
yeah.
same look 2 plays earlier and they got 6 yards. They've been killing you on east and west plays. They have a backup quarterback in that can't test you north and south, but your cornerbacks are 7 yards off. What are they scared of? They're not burning you. They're not going deep.
But you want to know what I think it is? I don't think they trust the DBs at OU. I
And
don't.
that easily could be it. And that's
So
fair.
they line up
That
the
easily
3 or
could be it.
4 man front, hoping that maybe these linemen who they think they trust, which I'm not saying the linemen are bad. I think the linemen are good, but they're being put in a position to fail, especially on those short yardage situations. I don't think they trust the DBs to go, hey, 1-on-1, and we're going to line everybody else up on the line.
Well, Trojan, now you're just willfully not listening. Yeah, now you're just willfully hearing what you'd like to say. The man that's an Oklahoma fan here just broke it down that he doesn't put this on Lincoln at this point. That at some point it is what it is. And look, when I say that, I don't, and that's why I had to ask like who's calling the plays, because I don't think scheme is bad. I don't necessarily, and I don't know what preparation is, but I don't see anything where I'm just like, oh, preparation is bad. It's just sometimes the situational play calls, I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. And the two that really just always stick out to me is the one I brought up probably a month and a half ago, whenever y'all were really running that 3-man front a lot. And I looked at you and Jay that video and I was like, guys, y'all rank 112th in rush defense. It's a 3rd and 1 and you have 3 down linemen, no linebackers up at the, like, I don't get why, like, to me, that's just telling the offense, please have this first down, right? Whenever you line up your corners 7 yards off and the first down marker is 2 yards away and the wide receiver takes 2 steps for a first down, to me, that's almost asking for an offense to be able to convert on you. I just don't get that.
Now, help me understand. Is there a reason why BV, do you think, has not fired Ted Roof at this point? Or I get not firing him in the middle of the season to show dysfunction, but maybe even moving him to an analyst role and taking more of the defensive coordinator calls. I don't understand why he's not done that at this point.
Well, I don't think he should. And let me be very clear here. Brent Venables is learning how to be a head coach. I don't think it's going to take long. We know 1,000% the man coaches defense at the highest level of college football. That's not a question. Anybody asking that question, I don't know that they've been paying attention. I don't worry about that. But he has to learn how to become a head coach. So I think right now Ted Roof makes a lot of sense because he trusts Ted Roof. Ted Roof knows exactly the vision Brent Venables has. So while Brent Venables is learning how to run this program, getting his first year under him, he has someone he trusts running the defense. Like I said, I don't have a problem with 99% of Oklahoma's game, but then and even 1% might be too high. But it's just sometimes in situations a play call comes in and I'm just like, but that doesn't even make logical sense to do that right there. And I think it may very well, PG, in complete fairness, go right back to personnel. It's just you don't have the personnel and they don't know how else to try and mask some of these things. So that's what they're attempting to do. I don't know enough about football, candidly. I'm still learning a lot every day. But yeah, it's just super interesting to see. And it's not going to get easier. I mean, y'all take on a tough challenge this weekend.
Yeah, Oklahoma State. I think the challenge for Oklahoma State comes down to, is Spencer Sanders going to play in that game? Because I think if Gunnar Gundy or the other guy playing, I think OU's got a really good shot. But then again, I thought OU had a really good shot against West Virginia too, and they completely proved me wrong. And I know we can point to the weather and everything, but West Virginia had to play in that weather too, so it's not like they had an advantage over us. I don't know if you saw, but Travis and I were going back and forth on Twitter the other day talking about the quarterback situation at Oklahoma. And I'm trying to pull the tweet up right now. Found it. He said Caleb Williams should count for a couple more percentage points. If you guys haven't found it, the Mainline podcast on Twitter posted the other day a percent of roster that is new plus the current record. They had OU at 42% at 5-5. And so that's where Travis came in with that. And I said, I would be curious to hear what you think this team would be if they kept Caleb. And ultimately he came down and we talked about it. And listen, like, outside of Caleb Williams, Dylan Gabriel was our best option, especially in the transfer portal. Look at what Jackson Dart's done at Ole Miss. Look at what
that's a great point. I saw something earlier today posing what OU would look like with Jackson Dart, and they were saying that at most y'all would be a 2-loss team. And I was sitting there and I was like, I like Jackson Dart. You can go back and check my videos. I was high on his move to Ole Miss. I don't see him moving the needle 3 games.
Nope.
For Oklahoma. I don't see that.
Nope.
I could be wrong.
And Jalen Daniels isn't doing that at KU, right? He's not doing that for us here. Max Duggan from TCU is not doing that here. Someone said any of the 2 Texas quarterbacks. I would make that argument that maybe Quinn Ewers moves the needle 3 games. I really like his game.
I love Quinn Ewers' upside too, but he's still so green, man. He's still so young in his development.
He's just young. Quinn Ewers is the only one that I could potentially make the argument for. Everybody else that was dropped in the mentions, I was just like, I don't know about that. Even Hudson Card, and that's saying a lot because Hudson Card is a really good quarterback. Right there, Ole Miss just has a really good running game, and that's how they've been able to make it through the season.
We're doing Marvel's What If series. I'm not gonna lie, Trojan. That's a good one. I'm not gonna lie. That's
listen,
a pretty good one.
Listen,
yeah,
Trojan. I don't know if you heard it, but I did say that OU fans have got to stop pointing the finger at Lincoln Riley, and at some point we have to start pointing the finger at ourselves. Lincoln Riley definitely did not have this program going in the right direction in terms of a like a core foundational piece, because if you watch Oklahoma over the past couple of years, they progressively started to get in some closer games and then started to drop more games. And we saw that in 2020 and then Lincoln Riley's year in 2021. And so this was bound to happen. And it just so happens that it's happened in BV's first year. And it more so is a culture change. Now, I don't know if he's taken that same culture to USC. We'll have to find out because listen, Oklahoma, it looked good for the first 2 or 3 years. So it could look good for the first 2 or 3 years at USC. I'm not sure. And we were definitely wrong about saying that USC was going to be down and Oklahoma was going to be up. It's been literally the complete opposite.
True.
But I said at some point or another, Oklahoma fans have to start pointing the fingers at, what's going on internally with us and not at Lincoln Riley. This is not a 100% Lincoln Riley problem.
Well, if we want to talk about a problem, I'll give you a problem. You want to talk about problems? Let's talk problems. This is a problem.
The young and the restless.
Texas A&M is down bad. I mean, guys, I said it in the video today. It is every week, it seems like on Monday, it's become a tradition. We sit down and we talk about Texas A&M. And we sit here and talk about how they've got to recapture momentum. They have to seize the opportunity in front of them. And every week, we're right back at the same place talking about how they failed to do so. And somehow, some way, something happens during the course of the week, not football related. You would think that losing to Auburn would be the biggest football news for Texas A&M, but it's not. I'm going to let that stew. Go ahead.
I read the tweet?
Before I do, I want to just 5 seconds to let this stew. Auburn, without a head coach, you lose to them after getting the greatest recruiting class of all time, and that's not the worst of the situation. That's wild. Go ahead, read it. It's wild.
I want to clear the air. I was benched for wearing arm sleeves, something that my teammates and opponents wear frequently for protection. I apologize to my teammates and fans and looking forward to getting back on the field. Much love. #Gig'em. #Aggie football.
Incredible. Truly. Every week, just when you think that the gift isn't going to give anymore, here we are. The goose lays another golden egg. I swear to you. What? Here's the thing, man, and I want to be very clear about this. If it's a rule, it's a rule. There have been rules that when I was a part of teams that I didn't like, but you have to follow them. Is it a dumb rule? Cool. It's dumb. The problem here is that apparently they have so little respect for not only the rules set place. First off, I don't get the rule because there's pictures of Moose Muhammad wearing sleeves and then apparently he's suspended for wearing a sleeve. His Twitter profile picture is of him in a game with Texas A&M with sleeves on. So I don't get the rule. What's more alarming is that they wanted to handle this internally. They said suspended for an internal reason, and it got external
I
real
feel like
quick.
at this point, Jimbo is trying to get himself fired. He's trying to get them to fire him.
Kirby, yeah. And hey, in fairness, Kirby, though, and I'm going to tell you this right here. Don't ever push back against that, because that admission is almost one that shows how impressive what Kirby's doing. And what I mean when I say that is, if your take is, oh, well, it makes complete sense, we're already back in year 2 after losing 16 guys, you're almost minimizing how impressive what Kirby's doing here is. That's not to say that the people who said that it couldn't happen are therefore justified. They're not. I remember you and I on this live stream over the summer talking about how Georgia's going to be right there. They recruit too well. Kirby runs too good of a ship, but never minimize how impressive what it is Kirby's done, man, because it is truly impressive what they've built. It is, and it deserves recognition, no doubt about it. And you even said here that I know of 2 players that are 75% locks to transfer from A&M to UGA once Aggie season ends. Guys, we're not going to get into specifics because y'all know this channel by now. I typically don't entertain rumors until they're concrete, but the rumor mill is spinning when it comes to transfer portal out of Texas A&M. That's all I'm going to say there. It is alive and it's well. Very alive and well. We'll see what happens. As always, I'm always kind of the wait and see guy. Truth will, it'll always come out. But where there's smoke, there's fire. Literally.
Alabama's getting at least 2 guys. I'm telling you right
I
now.
hope.
There are 2 guys on this team that I go, if they don't transfer to Bama. Hey, listen, we do jump in the comments. We do need to start taking a name for what we could call this segment of the show every single week.
Honestly, yeah, you had one. What was it? The Young and the Restless?
Well, yeah, but that's a TV show. So
Yeah.
we got to get a soap opera name here, guys, for Texas A&M that we can start the segment off with at every week.
Hey, Trojan, you remember when Malachi Nelson and Branch were flipping? I remember when that was the biggest thing in the rumor mill. And the whole time I'm sitting there and I'm like, I mean, why? If you're Malachi Nelson, like, why? Why would you? Lincoln Riley has a better track record with court. Why would you do that? It never made sense to me. And here we are. And now I can guarantee you that's not going to happen.
So, Matt, I think
Ooh.
OU gets I think OU gets 1 guy. I think USC gets 1. I think Bama gets 2 or 3. I do think Georgia probably gets 2 or 3. Yeah, Bama gonna go for Drake May. Everybody's going for Drake May. Everybody's going.
Well, you know he was committed to Bama at one point.
I know he was committed to Bama at one
That
point.
hurts.
Just like
That
Bryce
dude's a
Young was
baller.
committed to USC at one point.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
Maybe Bryce Young will hit the transfer portal and go to USC.
No. He's going to the
my
league.
drop?
Yeah, he's going to the league, and he should. That man's stock is so high. He said, cool, we need a safety, linebacker, and D lineman in the portal. The portal is going to be wild this year, Jimmy. Wild.
Yeah. And here's the other thing, guys, and I want OU fans to understand
That's
this
the
now.
approach, Trojan.
There are going to be so many superstars that hit the portal this year, and when OU doesn't take a lot of them, and they're taking, the guys that were either not ranked in the composite or 3 or low 4-star guys in the transfer portal, trust it and don't be acting all up in arms because we didn't get, the star guys across the land. There's a reason why some of those star guys are even in the portal. So, and BV has a list of guys that he wants to go after for a reason. So don't go up in arms just because we don't get the guys that we want.
But to piggyback off of your theory here, and it's not saying the same thing, but Ruggsy here is following the exact same logic you're dictating with. I think UGA takes maybe 1, but Kirby's going to be picky for the culture. And that's a great point. We talked about this, I think it was last live stream, that Kirby has done work in the portal, but he doesn't use it a lot. Now, what they've built over the past few years has allowed that to happen, right? Like, just unbelievable. So it's going to be interesting to watch, but I don't think, and I shouldn't say this, but I don't get the inclination that Kirby is anti-transfer portal, anti-getting guys out of it. He just wants the right guys, which fair play. And Ruggsy follows it up with another one. Look at Texas A&M. And that whole situation is wild. Just bad culture. And how can you argue against it, right, Ruggsy? Like, we don't even know what goes on there, but from the outside looking in, and I said this in the video I put out today, guys, if you haven't had a chance to check it out, if you wouldn't mind, check it out. I had a lot of fun making it. Genuinely, I did. Because I got to kind of tap into my moot court background, talking about the totality of circumstances and painting a picture, right? Y'all can say I'm a little hard on Jimbo Fisher. But what you have to grant me is when you look at the totality of circumstances and look at the painting that the totality of circumstances have painted for us, it's not a pretty picture at all. It is not at all. So I guess the question is, what comes next for Texas A&M? Because Matt says, does Texas A&M beat UMass? You better hope. Oh, God's mercy.
But what do they do if they don't? I mean, what do they do if they don't? Because you're not going to fire Jimbo until at least January, and still it's $85 million.
I swear to you, if they lose to UMass, I've been consistent and I don't think they're going to move on from Jimbo because why? Like, you realize we will talk about that for years if they move on the year after they gave him that contract.
It's going to be 30 for 30.
We will talk about this for years if they do that. But if they lose to UMass, hey, I got nothing else for you, buddy. I got no defenses. I got nothing. Nada. Zilch. You may be playing 5 stars and you may be playing freshmen, but
the spread on this game is 33.5.
Have they scored 33 points all season?
They did against Sam Houston State. They did.
Oh, that's good.
Houston State.
That's good. So they have scored 30 plus points this season.
I don't know if they can do it. I mean, UMass has a better defense than A&M does.
Oh no!
By like 20 yards.
Oh, and guys, I was kind of looking at some other things. What's going on at Auburn as well? That's going to be something we need to
270 yards, run it for 55 times.
No, not there. Apparently, there's some news brewing in Auburn right now. Nothing official, but I mean, you look at Auburn Twitter and you look at the people in the know, and it's not just like random people. It's people that cover Auburn that are decently in the know.
I wonder, is it? No. I'll save that for after. We talked about that coaching carousel thing last night, and I talked about how Auburn really needs to go after Deion Sanders because he would change.
I didn't say
he would change that program overnight.
Well, no.
I was telling Drew.
I said I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I didn't say it, but this is the rumor mill. I've heard they're going after Kiffin. Don't take that as gospel. I didn't say it. Kirby did.
Did you hear what Pate said about Kiffin last night?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I pray to God, no. I don't want to play Jordan O'Hare Stadium, which is already cursed. I don't want to play in that cursed stadium against Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, but I still think if they can't get Lane Kiffin, I mean, I still think they need to make the big push for Deion Sanders.
Why not?
Because
he moves the needle. Why not? He moves the needle. I think
it does, but if they can't land Lane Kiffin, they have to go after Deion because Deion will land you a top 10 class in his first year, and he will make you competitive in the SEC.
And he moves the needle. We know that.
But
we know that.
Credit to Drew. Drew said that him going to Georgia Tech would really give Georgia a run for their money in the recruiting.
And let's be fair here, because Kirby is saying allegedly this is the same. I didn't hear numbers, Kirby, and everybody in this line. I didn't hear numbers, but I mean, I got on Twitter right before we got on live, and everything was like, no, please, Kiffin, no. And like people tweeting like big news brewing in Auburn, like, so I don't know what's going on, but yeah, this was one of the things I heard, and neither Kirby nor I are saying it's happening. We're saying Twitter is talking, And in fairness, and I assume Kirby would agree with me here. I don't know where Kirby heard it from. I heard it from Twitter. That means nothing in terms of hearing something from Twitter. That means absolutely nothing. It's right sometimes, but until it's news, it's all just a part of the rumor mill, and we're going to treat it as such.
Hey,
But
well,
it is fun.
since we're talking about coaching, I will say this. The implosion that's happening with Nebraska Twitter right now about the potential of the Matt Rule hire, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Nebraska just can't seem to hit the hire right. People are freaking out over the potential of Matt Rule being their head coach.
Twitter, that's where you got it from. Yeah. Jimmy says Twitter is toxic. Twitter is Twitter, man. You got to look at it for what it is. If
No,
you look
Twitter is toxic. I got on the JP and Trav show and made myself look like a fool because of a fake verified account that I saw on Twitter. I'm done.
Can't believe Twitter is free. Man, they should pay us. Or they should make us pay for being able to participate in what moves needles in our society. Jeez. Yeah, Twitter is what it is for, what you use it for. I'm just on there for the memes.
I like this question that Trojan put up in the chat. Take out the Cam Newton season. Isn't Ole Miss and Auburn the same job?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to hear too much pushback from me, Trojan, on that.
I mean, does Ole Miss play every?
PG got trolled. I had your back. My man Matt out here. It was that bad, huh?
But it ended up being 6:30 anyway. So you know what? We're fine.
Yeah, you ended up right. But you want to talk about being right and wrong at the same time? Texas versus TCU. Guys, I don't know if y'all remember, both in the live last week on Friday and I think it was Tuesday, I put the video out talking about Texas TCU. I picked TCU to win this game. However, that's the only area I was right. My path to victory, off. My things I thought would happen in the game, wrong. Nothing else other than who I thought would win this game was correct. Here's where I will defend myself a little bit. I think if I would have told college football collectively that on your bingo board, Texas is going to hold TCU to 17 points, I think collectively college football would have told me Texas wins that football game. Right?
What a defensive battle. We talked about this with Drew a couple weeks ago about, the rise of the Big 12 in terms of how bad their defenses were supposedly every year, but the offenses were incredible. And now all of a sudden, over the past couple of years, we started to really see it shift towards defense. And on Saturday, man, we couldn't have got anything better than a defensive game. But we know that both of these offenses could probably go out there and put up, 30 or 40 on any other team in college football.
It was just wild to me. And especially you look at Texas's defense went out there, and I might butcher the numbers because I don't have them in front of me. While I'm talking, I can try and pull them up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to beat myself before I get there, but they had something like 14 tackles for loss. They had like 5 sacks. They had a touchdown defensively. You don't see a team put up numbers like that and lose. You don't. Very rarely do you see this. And once again, Texas loses the time of possession battle by almost 15 minutes. Guys, there's a real clear trend here in college football. I don't care if you're the more talented team. If you are getting beat in the time of possession battle that bad, it's going to be real hard to win football games. Not saying impossible, but you have got to have a prolific offense and a real good bend but don't break defense. Because you're just not going to be able to be viable. Who knows what team is getting on Saturday? You do at Texas. Who knows? That's probably true, man. That's probably true. But what was your thoughts watching this, man? Because Quinn, you were struggled again.
Yeah, and so I'm actually talking to a couple other people that are Texas fans that were actually there, and talking about how underwhelming this season has been, especially for what they expected from Quinn Ewers and what they supposedly saw in the spring, and quite honestly saying they're not super confident that he's going to be able to win the starting job over Arch, which, I mean, I still think Arch sits out. I think the question is, does he win the starting job from Hudson Card or Malik Murphy, which I have said it all year. Malik Murphy is going to be that dude at Texas. He's going to be QB2, potentially has a chance to be QB1 for a year as of next year. So one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the nation last year. I'm really sad that OU was not able to go out there and get that guy. But I watched this game, and Quinn Ewers has a lot of areas that he could grow in, but man, it just seems like Texas continues to be Texas. I don't know when we can say that Texas is ever back. Like, this was their opportunity to make a statement on the big stage and then go out and win their next 2 games and, make an 8-4 season. Now I'm really questioning, are they going to be able to go to Kansas next week, where
You hope.
Kansas is, dude. Kansas is going to be, that place is going to be sold out. It's going to be
It
loud.
is.
It's
No
a
doubt.
2:30 game too. So this is, I think people forget this a lot. I think 2:30 games in terms of a college football standpoint, if you're a college football school, you really want a 2:30 game because it gives people time in the morning to get up. They can still come and tailgate. They can tailgate after. It's not too late for people to get out. So I feel like you just have a bigger attendance and more people show up for those afternoon games than you would maybe a potential early morning or a late night game. I don't think I mean, and if Jalen Daniels plays in that game, Texas is going to have some issues. Texas is going to struggle, and they cannot have the second woe problems that they had, all season against Kansas. There's a very real shot that Texas ends up going 6-6 and is very, how do I say it? They just probably as dysfunctional as they were last season.
And that's the interesting thing. Well, I think I might push back a little bit. They've grown simply on the defensive side of the ball, and I do want to give them credit there. Because seriously, guys, and I know there's probably a lot of heated rivalry between Texas, Oklahoma. It's the same with me, Auburn. I get it, but objectively speaking, Bo Davis has done a phenomenal job with that defensive line over there. Now, guys, OU fans, once again, remember, Bo Davis is someone who I told all of you whenever Texas hired him, y'all need to watch this guy. He has been a legendary defensive line coach. It's taken him 2 years to get it going. So that's why I made that video about Todd Bates. It's going to be just fine. Don't worry. It's 1 year. It's not looking great. It's fine. Bo Davis didn't look great last year. And now look at Coburn this year. Dude is grading real high. They've got some dudes on that defensive front who are developing. But PG, to your point, do you want to know why I think I shouldn't say this. I'd be super interested to get Nino or Steven or Homer or Lando, one of those great Texas content creators on here, and pick their brain about this. I think this season could hurt more than last season because last season you knew it's Sark's first year. You don't have a masterful roster for him to take over. This year, you knew you were still in a bit of a rebuild, but during the early portions of this year, you saw what the possibilities were if everything went right, and now we see where they are.
Yeah, but if they go 8-4 this season, even if they win their next 2 games and go 8-4, I still think that you can say this has been an underwhelming season and a disappointment for Texas. Because look at the offense that they had this year, and when I look up and down their board, outside of playing teams like the University of Louisiana Monroe and Oklahoma, and maybe the 41 points they put up against UTSA, they didn't it's not like they were out there blowing teams out.
So, and Corey says to ask me, Corey, I'm going to ask you this question. Which year would you say hurts more? Last year, whenever you drop some big games, it is what it is, but it's Sark's first year. The expectations are a little bit all over the place. Or this year, where during the course of the early portions of this year, you saw what could have been. Which one of those stung more from a fan?
Well, and mind you, to add on to that point, this year as well, you had an offensive line that got tremendously better, which has
they're still young to Corey's point, but they are good.
No, it doesn't matter that they're young. They're one of the best offensive lines in the country. Up to this game, they had only allowed 2 sacks on Quinn Ewers.
That's a fair answer, Corey. No doubt about it. Fair answer. Depends on the 2 games, but yeah, last season.
Corey, what if they split it 1-1? What if they split it 1-1? Because I think that's pretty realistic.
That's a fair assumption as well. I am one. Can we talk about UGA? You know what? Yeah, absolutely. We can talk about UGA because, geez Louise, man, what y'all are doing is terrifying. I do want to hear from Corey. We'll ping pong back a little bit.
He said last season.
He said last season, yeah, the freshmen look like freshmen against TCU. All fair, all completely fair. I'm no pushback from me. I was just really curious what.
Yeah, I
from a
could
Texas
honestly
fan's
though,
perspective.
I could really make this argument that it's this year just because you've seen such an improvement talent-wise across the board, and it's not just an improvement talent-wise. People that actually look like they want to play disciplined football for Texas, and it just doesn't seem like it's been able to be put together. Now, do they have a much better season? I want to say I expect Texas to have a better season next year, but I said that they'd have a better season this year, and quite honestly, I'm not really seeing too much of a difference from last season to this season. Last season they looked really good up until the point the players just quit. I mean, that's really what happened. The players just quit last season.
Yeah, and Hank brings up a good point. Hank, I didn't even think about this, but and this may have moved the needle to me. I'd say Hank says I'd say last year because losing 6 straight is tough. That's a damn good point, Hank.
Yeah, but the players quit last year. The players literally quit on that team last year, and that's why they lost straight games.
True, no doubt about it, man. But I think
that could also
but I think that could also go into making it more painful. Just the fact that it was just like an apathy, right?
I don't know. For me, I think it's more painful to watch the guys go out there and try and still can't get it done, knowing that you are out talenting more teams than none.
Let's talk about some Georgia, man, because Georgia absolutely dismantled Mississippi State. And let's be honest here, I don't think that too many people anticipated Mississippi State would be able to pull this off.
No.
But at the same time, man, who can stop Georgia? Like, that's my biggest question right now. And really, when we're looking at playoff eligible teams, you look at Ohio State, and my biggest question for them is, where's your defense? Where's your defense at? That's where I want to know. Where does Jim Knowles have that defense at? And then the question I'm going to ask is, how are you going to stop some of these weapons for Georgia? Guys, here's the thing about Georgia. If you're somebody, Michael Flores, TCU fan, says just 29 yards from one of the best running backs in the nation is pretty good. TCU, go Frogs. Hey, Michael, unbelievable game from your Frogs, no doubt about it. One of these days, I'm going to get Denzel Johnson. Of course, you probably know him, former Big 12 first-team safety for the TCU Horned Frogs. He's joined us once or twice here on the live stream, friend of mine. I'm going to get him back on here. I'll put out an announcement whenever that happens. Maybe on Friday, I'll get him on here to preview TCU's game this weekend or one of the next TCU games. That'd be a lot of fun. But if you're somebody just kind of getting back to Georgia, if you're somebody wondering why Georgia is accelerating offensively the way they are, I have a few reasons for you. One, I think Rugsy points it out perfectly. Monken is calling a great game plan. I mean, Monken is in rare form. Very true. No doubt about it. Number 2, Stetson Bennett understands the offense. He understands what he needs to do, and he is all too happy to play within his means. And when he does that, he's very tough to beat. Stetson Bennett understands what he needs to do to be successful, and he does it to an incredibly high degree. Nothing but praise for the young man. Look, he had 2 interceptions. Sure. Stetson Bennett has played better than anybody anticipated Stetson Bennett would play. So we can make the jokes about he's a walk-on. He's been there forever. Let's give the young man his flowers. He wanted to come play college football. He won a national championship, and he's backing it up with another great year. Hats off to the young man. Awesome to see. The third reason I'm going to give you, you look at the personnel they have, and they have got a lot of talented players. But they have got the biggest mismatch, in my opinion, in college football. And it's not just relegated to one guy. It's an entire room, that tight end room. You have Bowers. You have Washington. They are so good. Brock Bowers is a mismatch. Washington is a mismatch as well, and he's 6'7". In the red zone, just throw it up to him. Go. Stop it. You can't. I guarantee it. I bet money right now. Guys, when I look at this, and I'm really interested in hearing from all of you, Georgia just seems to have it. PG, what are you thinking?
I I gotta stop doubting Stetson Bennett, and I think this is his last year at Georgia, right?
I think so. I would be. I mean, unless he's pursuing a doctorate's degree there, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I gotta stop discounting Stetson Bennett and what he's able to do, but it just shows, right? You put great talent around anybody, and they could be whatever you want them to be. Because I mean, I think we all looked at it multiple times and said there were better quarterbacks in that room. Yet Stetson Bennett has continually went out there and won that job, and continued to shock the world. To me, this season, I did not expect Georgia to be 10-0 at this point,
No, I didn't either.
and
I
you
thought they'd be
know,
good. I told
yeah.
Kirby I thought they'd be good. I thought they'd be better than I think even a lot of the national pundits were saying. I didn't think they'd be this good.
Yeah, no, their defense is playing incredible, right? I think there were at the beginning of the season there were so many questions that I had around some of these guys that were going to be stepping in for that missed production that they lost, and it doesn't seem like they've missed a beat. It's like nobody went to the NFL draft. That's literally what it's like.
Jalen
One
Carter is
yeah,
that dude.
one guy can go down, and it's like the next man up. Now you asked about the team that I think could give Georgia a run for their money or beat them. And I mean, I think it's clear. It's Ohio State. I do think their defense has gotten tremendously better. And then
Knowles was a great hire.
yeah, I think that the Ohio State offense, it reminds me a lot of some of those Oklahoma offenses. And
Okay.
we saw what an Oklahoma offense was able to do and hang in there with Georgia. Now, that was not the Georgia teams that we saw of today, but I think at a certain time, the talent on the offense has got to be able to account for something against that Georgia defense. And I think Ohio State's got it.
They've
They're
got a
super
lot of
deep.
talent on that
They're
offense.
super deep at every position on the offensive side of the ball. And on the defensive side of the ball, they've got dudes like JT Tuamailola, which I mean, that man is a freak.
Jack
Literally a
Sawyer,
freak. Yeah, they
another
got
one.
Jack Sawyer, which I don't know. Has he been a little disappointing for you this season for Ohio State?
Not the numbers I would have thought he would have put up, admittedly. But to be fair, and if there's any Ohio State fans in the chat, I haven't done as deep of a dive on what Jim Knowles is doing there. I've only ever really watched a game on Saturday, maybe on a Sunday. I'm taking my day of relaxing, and I know this is my day of relaxing involves turning on more college football. So while everybody's watching NFL football, I'm typically watching and rewatching college football games on Sunday. I might rewatch an Ohio State game just as a chill enjoy, not with my notebook. I mean, guys, this is one notebook, and behind me, I don't know if y'all know, there's 4 others just from the year and a half I've done this, all filled with notes from videos, games. I haven't done that. I need to, but until I know that, the only thing I'll tell you is I thought he would have put up bigger numbers.
Well, the most points that they've allowed all season was 31 points to a Penn State team that's averaging 34 points a game. Other than that, the next highest is 21. So, in this Ohio State defense, we're talking about guys like JT Tuamailoa or Jack Sawyer, but they've got 2 linebackers and 2 safeties on this team that are dudes and leading their teams in tackles. You got Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers for the linebackers. Eichenberg's got 92 total tackles. Like I think we're missing a lot there, and 2.5 sacks this season.
No, it's a solid team, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, up and down the board on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, they just look solid. And when you watch them on the defense, yeah, they might struggle a little bit the first 1 or 2 drives, but they seem to really figure it out really quickly. And then, we talked about on the offensive side of the ball, they've got Travion Henderson or Mayan Williams. And then, for the receiving core, it's just one guy after another. And then you've got CJ Stroud, but they got Kyle McCord, who's actually had to step in a couple times in late games, to just finish it off. He's looked pretty good. So I definitely think
he's a good talent.
Yeah, I think Ohio State could, give Georgia, the biggest run for their money. And when you look at what their defense is doing this season, they're only allowing 271 yards a game. And I know people will say, well, they haven't really played anybody on the offensive side, that or on the defensive side of the ball that has a good offense. But I mean, they're still holding everybody. I mean, under 20 points. And I feel like in today's college football game, holding anybody under 20 points is a win.
Yeah, I'm going to know a lot more about Ohio State once they play Michigan. That's when I'm going to really feel like I have my understanding of who they are, what they do, what the theory is, what the end goal is, the whole 9 yards. Once they play Michigan, that's going to be the live y'all need to tune into, because then I'll give you my deep dive into how they match up, because that's going to be my best comparison. And it's even crazy, man. This is so wild to say. This just blows my mind. If I'm not mistaken, I am Kirby. If y'all are still in here, Rugsy, you might know. I mean, you've been on point with all this stuff. If I'm not mistaken, isn't the split this year between run and pass at Georgia 65-45? Or 65-35? I'm so sorry. 65-35. Aren't they calling the split 65% pass to 35% run? Or maybe a bit closer, 60-40? Basically, point being, typically we think of Georgia as a run-first team, and that is not what the Dogs have been this year. They've been more willing to pass the football than I think a lot of people even give them credit for, and that's just going back to what Stetson Bennett's doing and the effectiveness of the job he's doing.
Yeah, it's a pretty 50-50 split.
Is it 50-50? I thought it was.
So they've had
a
362 passing attempts, and they've had 356 rushing attempts.
I thought it was a lot bigger than that. Okay, that's definitely my fault. For whatever reason, I was sure that the split was bigger than that.
Yeah, I mean, it might be. I'm just pulling it up in the statistics on ESPN.
No, I'd trust that. Yeah. I'd trust that more than off the top of my head.
Yeah. So no I think Georgia has a really good shot to outdo anybody. And I think probably the biggest question for Ohio State that we're not going to get an answer to is, are they going to be able to defend the passing game? Because everybody in the Big Ten is going to be able to run the ball. I mean,
and that's the biggest question mark still.
Yeah. I have no doubt in my mind they're going to be able to go in there and hold Blake Corum down, and whoever they get on the Big Ten, or on the east side or west side, whatever it is.
I mean, what is it?
I mean, yeah, I mean, they're going to hold Muhammad Ibrahim or whoever it is on that side. I guess the real question is, are they going to be able to go in there and stop the Georgia tight ends? Now, with what I'm seeing from their linebacking core, I definitely think their linebackers could potentially try to slow down the Georgia tight ends, and then you've got some really good safeties back there. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think we're gonna get that answer until they have to go play Georgia. And I do think your national championship is going to be at Georgia Ohio State.
It certainly looks like that's where we're spiraling towards.
Unless for some reason TCU comes in there ranked at number 3 and upsets Ohio State, which, I mean, there's a good chance that TCU could be that number 3 spot if they win out, right? Because they're going to be undefeated. They'd be playing Ohio State. So, they could get the first crack at it with their wide receiving core to give Ohio State a run for their money. And then,
that is one to watch.
Yeah, another team that I think they would lose, but I think could really play with Georgia in terms of the offensive side of the ball is USC. And I know OU fans aren't going to like that.
No,
but
I mean, look, I hear you, and I like what USC has. USC is trending in the right direction. I just look at the depth, and I'm like, okay, I love what USC has, and I think they'd be able to do some things to affect Georgia. But during a 4-quarter game, I just think what Kirby has built is so substantial.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but USC has depth at the receiver position. I think on the running backs, they're probably running a little slim now, especially with Travis Dye going down. And I think that's probably the biggest question for USC.
I don't know that they can block Jalen Carter.
I mean, maybe not, but I'm not saying on the defense side of the ball. I know USC will get lit up on the defensive side of the ball, but we've seen what Lincoln Riley can do against, Kirby Smart on the offensive side of the ball. And that's what I'd be curious to see. I'd be curious to see if USC could hold their own like they did back in 2017 when we had to play Georgia in the Rose Bowl.
Trojan is a big fan of that comment. Okay, BG.
Listen, I just like Caleb Williams, and I know that Caleb Williams could potentially go out there and be
he's
that
a problem.
Dude
He
Georgia.
Certainly is an X factor.
If you're Georgia, you really ain't gonna have you're not gonna have an answer for Caleb.
You look at it, and here's the only reason why I hear you, and I'm not saying I 1000% disagree, but here's the only thing I'll say. I think that everything you're arguing for USC, I could make a very analogous argument for Ohio State, but they've been in a position to accumulate better depth than USC has because Lincoln Riley just got there. Trojan, don't get it mistaken. I've been very forthright. I love the future USC has at their feet. I do. But right now, you're talking about a team in Georgia that just lost 16 guys to the NFL and is right there. That is, I mean, that's industrial. Right? That's a machine.
Is Georgia the new Alabama?
Look, this is once again, I have the Alabama sign behind me. I keep that up there. That way everybody can check my bias. Until I see Alabama officially gone, I'm going to say not yet, but man, are they just impressive? Are they building something that is terrifying? Are they a force to be reckoned with? Yes, yes, and yes. But and I think some people, even if they disagree with me, I think you will all grant me this. Nick Saban has earned the benefit of the doubt enough for us to be like, okay, yeah, put a fork in them. They're dead. You get what I think we need to give Nick Saban that due diligence. You can say the same thing about TCU. And the interesting thing, Corey, here, I love this comment. Whenever Tennessee opened up as number one on the college football playoff committee when they did their opening rankings, I had no issue with that. No issue. Tennessee played an incredibly difficult schedule.
I
They
did.
earned it. You did. I didn't. They'd played the hardest schedule in college football, and even now they've played the toughest schedule in college football. Obviously, Georgia should be the number one team. We know that now. But I didn't have a problem with it. The problem I had is exactly what I think Corey is getting at. The committee said they didn't want to put TCU any higher because they wanted a team to be complete. They wanted them to play offense and defense. And I was like, guys, Tennessee's passing defense is 127th in the nation. That's not complete.
They just don't want to do it because TCU is not a brand, right? They don't see TCU as the Oklahoma, and so they don't really want to give. I'm not gonna lie, this committee has got to be fearful that TCU is going to go undefeated and be one of the only three undefeated teams in the country.
Well, look, and Corey, I know there's still a lot of people that aren't bought in on TCU. And in fairness, I know you can point me to games. You can point me to y'all's Texas game and be like, hey, look what we were able to do. They've won. We're here. We're here in the season, and they're undefeated. They've won. They need if they remain undefeated, they need to go to the playoffs. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And they've been fun, man. What a time to be a TCU fan. What a time. The Big 12 is going to be really interesting. Now, Keaton, you said you were making some ribs earlier. I got a rib recipe that is dangerous. I hope you're correct. I am one. I think Bama will win at least one or two more natties before Nick Saban leaves. That'd be amazing. But I'm one of those Alabama fans that's not like disenfranchised and understanding that all good things must come to an end. And the Alabama Crimson Tide run, it has been incredible, but it's going to end at some point. Do I think that's now? That kind of reverts me back to what I said. You got to put a fork in it for me to believe it's done. I think Saban has earned that, but it's been incredible.
Yeah, I mean, can I make the point of why I think Nick Saban's done? Because over the past couple of years, watching Nick Saban in Alabama, I mean, yes, they still look dominant at times, right? They still have these super efficient defenses. Their offenses, they're still putting people out in the league. They're still gathering top tier recruiting classes. My thing is I do think college football is catching up to Nick Saban and Alabama really quickly, especially with now what NIL is doing. And here's the problem with this. The college football playoffs is about to expand to 12 teams.
That's only going to benefit Alabama.
Year. Well, yeah, I know, but I expect next year. The problem is now Alabama is going to have to play other teams that I think could potentially beat them in other years. Like, I really do. Like, if I'm looking at the standings right now, and if we ended today at a 12-team playoff, I don't think Alabama's beating a Michigan. I don't think they're beating Ohio State. I don't think they're beating Tennessee again. I think Tennessee could beat them again. I don't think they're beating LSU twice.
Tennessee is a tough one to me because we got to remember that was in Tennessee. That was like their Super Bowl, and Alabama had 17 penalties. And
yeah,
lost
but
by
Tennessee
3
would
points.
have home field advantage again. Tennessee would have home field advantage again.
But wouldn't it be a neutral site?
So the 12-team format, isn't it the first two rounds are at their respective
I thought it was for only. I shouldn't say. I really, off the top of my
head.
Yeah,
I thought that I saw, and I might be wrong on this. I thought the first two rounds were at the respective home fields, and then it goes to the bowl games. Once you get down to 4.
I'm not sure, but here's my thing, man. Whenever we look at this, Alabama still has all the players in the world. NIL is a thing, but Alabama is going to be able to do their deal in NIL. I mean, you look at it right now. You want to know who I think one of the top 5 most valuable college football players is for the NIL evaluations?
Bryce Young.
Bryce Young. You want to know who's not far behind?
Will
Will
Anderson.
Anderson. So the NIL they're able to do, right? Bryce was $1 million quarterback before he ever took a snap. That's just wild.
But I think one of the things that I see with this Alabama team that really concerns me is I don't see people fear Alabama anymore. I don't see the, ex Nick Saban coaches go in there. They just have a different body language now when they're playing Alabama on the sidelines.
No, I think we're taking this year, right? Like last year, obviously, you lose to Jimbo in a wild game and then in the national championship, the way that happened. But at the same time, we got to realize, man, I think if we also need to talk about how much of this we lay the blame at the coordinators. Now, I don't think that absolves Nick Saban of blame, but I thought it was crazy that OU was a bottom 100 rush defense and rolled out a 3-man front on a 3rd and 1. I think it's asinine insane that Alabama rolled out a 1-4-6 against a rush heavy team. 1 defensive lineman, 4 linebackers, 6 defensive backs. That's asinine. Like as big of a problem as I had with any team being 3rd and 1, not being a good rush defense and only putting 3 down linemen at the line, I feel like you're just asking for a first down. You rolled out a 1-4-6 against LSU with no QB spy? I wouldn't fear that. Regardless of the players, you roll out a 1-4-6, I'm laughing at you. I don't fear that. I don't know what we're doing half the time.
I mean,
so I just
maybe I'll get maybe I'll get proved wrong with a turnover on the coordinator side for Alabama, but I don't know, like over the past couple of years, it just seems like the coaches keep getting closer and closer and closer to Nick Saban when they're coaching, and it doesn't seem like they fear him a whole lot anymore on the sidelines, which I think is dangerous. And then again, with all of these teams being able to get more talent and the playoffs expanding, it's just more opportunities for Alabama to lose, and I just don't see them being as. This is not me saying that Alabama's going to fall off a cliff and only win 6 games next year. I do think Alabama's going to continually be another 10, 11, 12 win team. I just don't think we're going to see Alabama in the national championship or in, maybe the Final Four as much as we have seen them in the past. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm getting at. When I talk about is the Nick Saban dynasty over, this is what I mean.
This is an interesting comment. Do we even throw the ball over the middle at all? And it's so wild. When you go back and watch Lebby at Ole Miss, they were killing teams with slants. Killing them. Murdering them. And it's crazy. When you watch DG, this is the craziest thing to me. And this is going to be one of the last things. And once again, guys, we're winding down the stream for this evening. If y'all have a team you'd like us to end on, go ahead and drop it down in the comments. If there's a unanimous decision, we'll end it there. But I want to hear from you. The crazy thing about me, when I watch DG, he was primed for an RPO offense. Like he's that type of quarterback that, now granted, in fairness, seems like he's primed for an RPO offense. You'd think that the quick slant would be a way that y'all would kill teams with Marvin Mims, with Farouk, like with Eric Gray.
That's how we've done it in the past.
I just thought that y'all would be killing teams with that, especially with as effective as Eric Gray has been. At the point where he is rushing the way he is, safeties have to respect him. Run that RPO, bam, you got Mims.
Yeah, I don't understand what's going on there. It's worked in the past. Historically, that's kind of been what Oklahoma's been able to do. I quite honestly, I just don't think Dylan Gabriel has that touch yet with these receivers. I just don't. If him and Mims were on a better page, we'd be talking about something completely different. Him and Mims are not on the same page. That's really what this all comes down to. But Corey, to your point, Oklahoma doesn't really have as great as a quarterback. Texas has 3 quarterbacks. They've got Malik Murphy, a true freshman, and then they've got Hudson Card, who I think is pretty dang good. Remember, Hudson Card was a highly recruited guy out of high school. And then you got Quinn Ewers, the number 1 quarterback in the 2021 class. So Texas has quarterbacks. It's just I don't think they have good quarterback development, and I don't think they've had good quarterback development since Vince Young.
Well, that's the last offensive. And guys, this is something I think a lot of the Oklahoma fans, Corey, Oklahoma, Texas fans. Corey, I think you've been around my channel. I know you've been around my channel for a long, long time. I think you were around when I made that video. I made the video a year ago in 2021 talking about the lack of offensive production that Texas has put into the first round of the NFL draft, that they hadn't had a first round draft pick on the offensive side of the ball since 2006. And it was Vince Young. And they only had 6 first round picks outside of that, all of them defensive guys. Now, granted, all those guys went on to be pretty darn good football players. But it was just wild, to your point, right? Keaton says Kansas. Let's get weird. I like this, Keaton. I like this a lot. And you asked about the ribs recipe. Simple, man. You put them on the smoker, let them do their thing. Simple salt, pepper, garlic. We don't go crazy over here. Wrap them up, but when you wrap them, put some sticks of butter at the bottom, put some brown sugar, wrap it up, let it go for about an hour and a half, unwrap it, slather a little bit of barbecue sauce on it, and leave it open. Let that smoke caramelize that barbecue sauce. And then when it gets hard and sticky, you pull them off. Depends how you like them. Do you like them competition style, a little bit of bite to them? Do you like them more fall off the bone? My fiance likes them fall off the bone, and I must admit I do too. So that's what we do, and it's pretty hard to miss. But let's talk about Kansas. Let's talk about Kansas. And
they're already getting it done in the transfer portal. I just want you guys to know that Lance Leipold's already hitting the transfer portal hard. They got a 5-star offensive tackle out of the transfer portal the other day already.
Yeah.
Kansas ain't going anywhere, guys. Kansas isn't going anywhere.
He knows. Look, he knows the process. I don't have to tell him anything. He knows the smoking process I go through. Yeah. Good man. But let's talk about Kansas. Guys, Kansas has been the gift that keeps on giving, and they're not alone in college football. There's a few teams, PG, I mean, you're going to want to throw a book at me because you've heard me say this. What week are we on? 11. Week 11, so you've heard me say this 10 times. Kansas has been, but Washington, I have had so much fun watching Washington and Michael Penix.
Oh, he's so good.
But it's not out of the realm of expectations that Kansas doesn't catch a big win this weekend. Now, this is going to be something we talk about in greater detail, but let's talk about this. One thing that scares me when we look at this game is the fact that I don't know where Quinn Ewers is. I don't know what we're going to get out of Quinn Ewers. And if you're Texas, at this point of the season, you would have thought for sure that Quinn would be much more automatic than he currently is. I'm not going to say automatic because he is technically a true freshman. I know he's not a true freshman, guys. I understand. But in all technicality, he's a true freshman. But the throws over the middle, that is alarming. Now, my biggest question is who plays quarterback? Who plays quarterback for Kansas? Is it Bean? Is it Daniels?
I think it's Bean right now, but I think Jalen Daniels is targeting a comeback for this game.
Yeah.
Let me look it up for you.
It's going to be a good one. Corey asks, can teams win a natty without a dual threat quarterback nowadays? You can, Corey. You can.
Better have a damn good offensive line.
Better have a good offensive line. You better have real good scheme. You better have a good defense. It's certainly not out the realm of possibility. I mean, you just think back to that Alabama offense with Mac Jones and then the year prior, Joe Burrow. And I get it. Joe Burrow, I'm not going to say he's a mobile quarterback, but he would get out when he needed to. He would get out when he needed to.
Okay, so Jason Bean played in the last game.
Well, that's the thing. That's why.
But it's not like they've had a drop-off in production
exactly
since Jason Bean. And in fact, it's been better. I mean, his completion percentage is 2% lower, but he's thrown for more yards, 1,200 yards. He's had 14 touchdowns. He's had 4 interceptions. But remember, Jason Bean is the guy that beat Texas last year.
Well, when you look at yards per game, Kansas is getting more yards per game. You look at yards allowed, they're certainly allowing more yards. That's going to be the catalyst here. Well, Corey, this is a very fair question. I had not 5 minutes ago saying, I don't know what I'm going to get out of Quinn. You said, what are we getting out of Sark? Very fair question. Very fair question. And I don't know the answer to this, Corey. And I'm interested in hearing from you. I'm interested in hearing from everybody. PG certainly interested in hearing from you. And I think we're going to close it on this one. it's tough for me to look at Texas right now and know exactly where I want to be like, that's problematic. Because Sark has his limitations. You look at the second half debacles of Steve Sarkisian, whether they have a small lead, whether they're tied, whether they're down, it's not going well in the second half. And that's perplexing because when you talk about head coaches or offensive minds, Sark has one of the most beautiful opening scripts to games of any coach in college football consistently. You look at their first 15 plays, usually, oh my goodness gracious, it's automatic. Coming out of halftime, it's like a totally different thing. That being said, though, Corey, I don't know how many times I thought the play calling was wrong and that Quinn just wasn't hitting the target, right? I think the answer is probably a healthy dose of both, personally. But that's going to be something interesting. What's your thoughts on that, PG?
Sorry, I got totally sidetracked here. Georgia just got a 4-star cornerback to decommit from him, and Daniel Harris. So I was kind of looking at that for a
Decommit
second.
from
who? Daniel Harris decommitted from Georgia.
Is decommitted from Georgia? Oh,
yeah, he's being pursued by Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. He is from Florida, and Florida did offer him. Florida did not make, I don't think, the final list of teams in there. So that's definitely someone that you're going to want to watch. There's a lot of teams that need cornerbacks in this class, and he is going to be a guy that potentially could start at, wherever he goes. And there's a lot of teams that could get in on this recruitment really quickly. So he is from Miami, Florida. So that's potentially something to potentially watch with Miami.
Travis, we're going to put a pin in this comment right here because this is one that we could go deep into, and it's about time for us to get off this evening. Let you all enjoy your Monday night football. I need to go hang out with the fiance, eat some dinner, and I can go for hours on this topic alone. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and at least, I don't have my pen with me right now. I'm going to take a picture of that. That way I remember this topic. We're going to open up Friday's live stream.
And this is going to be something that we're going to talk about going into the SEC championship, because we're going to have a better idea of what the college football playoffs is going to look like. I don't think LSU gets in right now as a 2-loss team. Now, a 2-loss team with a conference championship and beating Georgia, they definitely have the case. But a 1-loss
Georgia, if they beat Georgia, it's going to be real tough to keep them out.
Because let's just play out the scenario right now. Undefeated Ohio State gets in. Undefeated TCU gets in. A 1-loss Georgia gets in?
I would think so.
I would think so too. So, but what if you have a 1-loss USC team?
See, this is where it gets interesting.
Or a 1-loss North Carolina or Clemson team. So I think we'll have a better understanding as we head either out of championship week or into championship week. We'll get a better understanding of what
even
this is gonna look like.
Even tomorrow evening, once we get an idea of where their heads are at, because even though the rankings are fluid, they change so much, they at least give us some sort of inclination as to what the committee is looking at, and we can kind of try and piece this together to make more informed decisions.
Maybe, but I really think we need to see, especially what's going to happen with the Pac-12 and the ACC, because as a 1-loss champion in both of those conferences, you're really going to start because I know LSU, even as a conference champion, they should get in. But you have to really start asking yourself, does the SEC get left out at that point? Because I could make the argument that you can't put in Georgia as a non-conference champion above a 1-loss champion North Carolina in the ACC and 1-loss champion USC in the Pac-12.
Now, granted, this is a wild hypothetical we're creating.
Yeah, you could make those arguments. So we have to wait a couple more weeks to really start making a deep diving into this argument, just because there's still so many things that can play out. I think, in my opinion.
No, I don't think that's crazy either. Not at all. But all right, guys, we're going to get out of here. Next live stream, Friday, 5:30. We're going to preview everything this weekend has to offer. You don't want to miss it. I'm going to do my best to get Denzel on the live stream for any of the TCU fans still in here. Let him talk to you all about TCU, really what he's excited about, because he is real excited. And outside of that, we're going to be talking Bedlam. We're going to be talking about all the games this weekend. You don't want to miss it. And Travis, we will open up talking about LSU and the implications they have, not only this year, but talking about their chances in the SEC championship game. But I think there's also a larger conversation we need to acknowledge about the job Brian Kelly has done and LSU. And I think there's a larger conversation to be had there. But having said all that, thank you all, everybody, for joining us. Before we get out of here, PG, tell the people where they can find all of your great content.
Yeah, y'all can find me on YouTube or any of the podcast platforms, the PG Show, all one word. Listen, we got a lot of great content this week. We're going to be covering Bedlam. We'll be covering Bedlam after the game. We got some good stuff lined up for that as well. But listen, I'm also going to be dropping some recruiting updates for both OU and Texas going into the weekend. This is a big, big recruiting weekend for Oklahoma, right? This is one that they cannot miss on. They have to be able to beat Oklahoma State to be able to land this recruiting weekend. And listen, Texas, they're in a lot of races, but they could easily take themselves out of these races, and a lot of teams could put themselves in. And we're heading up into December where the transfer portal is going to start getting hot. So come in, check me out, and I promise you we'll have lots of great content for you.
Yeah, man. Always a great time. Always enjoy checking your stuff out. But that being said, guys, thank y'all for joining us this evening. We'll see y'all on Friday. And having said that, y'all enjoy your Monday.